All right, let's dive into one of the biggest questions out there. What is the relationship between our minds and the world around us? We're going to go on a little philosophical journey today, and it all starts with something you probably do all the time. And it ends with a question that could change how you see reality itself.
So let's start with a really simple scenario. Picture this. You're on a walk. You see a cool-looking tree and you pull out your phone to figure out what it is. You're just trying to get a little bit of information about the world.
And the app tells you, hey, that's a maple tree. Now the tree itself, it hasn't changed one bit. Its DNA, its branches, its leaves, it's all exactly the same as it was a second ago. But something new has just popped into existence. A new fact, a piece of meaning now exists in the world.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because we're talking about two totally different kinds of information. You didn't change the tree's ontic information. That's the physical stuff, the actual matter and energy making up the tree. But what you did do was create new epistemic information. The idea, the knowledge that this tree is a maple now exists in your mind and on your phone. You've literally changed the map of reality, even if you haven't changed the territory.
So you might be thinking, okay, that's a neat little thought experiment. But what if I told you that this everyday act echoes one of the weirdest, most mind-bending ideas in all of science? It seems worlds apart, but the basic pattern is spookily similar.
And that brings us to the wild world of quantum physics, specifically the idea of wave function collapse. See, before we look, a tiny particle can exist in this kind of haze of possibilities. It could be here, it could be there, it could be spinning this way or that way all at once. But the instant you measure it, bam! That cloud of possibilities collapses into one single concrete reality.
So let's connect the dots here. Before you looked at the tree, its identity was just a bunch of possibilities to you. It could have been an oak, an elm, whatever. Your observation collapsed all those possibilities into one known fact, maple. It's the same pattern. In both cases, an active observation takes a world of potential information and makes it real.
So what does this all mean? Well, it's a huge idea. The act of observing is an act of creation, not creating the thing itself, but creating its knownness. It takes a piece of the physical world and gives it a specific, defined place on our informational map.
Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit. We've seen how observing can create a new piece of information, but how does that even happen? How does the physical world of stuff out there become a non-physical thought in our heads?
Well, it's like a one-way street, from matter to meaning. It all starts with pure physics, right? Light particles bounce off a leaf and hit your eye. That sets off a chain reaction of physical events, electrical signals zipping through your brain. But then, the magic happens. Your brain takes all those physical signals and translates them into something completely non-physical, the concept of a maple leaf.
And once that meaning exists, it's got a life of its own. It's now in this abstract world inside your head. You can remember it, you can talk about it, you can dream about it, long after that physical leaf is gone. The physical has been perfectly translated into the non-physical.
Okay, so that's one direction on this street. Matter becomes meaning. But can we go the other way? Can our non-physical thoughts actually reach out from our minds and have a real physical effect on the world?
And the answer, amazingly, is yes. We do it every single second. A totally non-physical thing, an intention, a desire, like, I want to pick up that leaf, just appears in your mind. And that thought kicks off a cascade of purely physical events. Neurons fire, signals shoot down your arm, muscles contract, and your hand moves. Just like that, meaning becomes motion.
So what we have here is this incredible two-way street, a constant flow. In one direction, you have perception, turning the physical world into non-physical meaning. And in the other direction, you have intention, turning that non-physical meaning back into physical action. And there's something right in the middle, acting as the bridge between them.
And what's sitting right in the middle of that bridge? Yep, it's consciousness. Consciousness is the translator, the grand central station that allows the world of matter and the world of meaning to talk to each other. It's the pivot point for this whole incredible exchange.
And it's not just a passive bridge, it's an active field. It's this dynamic space where reality creates experience, and our experiences can then turn around and shape reality. They're constantly co-creating each other, and consciousness is the medium where it all happens.
This is where we take the final and maybe the biggest leap. We've been calling consciousness the bridge. But what if we've been thinking about the bridge itself all wrong?
This brings us to what's famously called the hard problem of consciousness. Science is great at explaining how the brain processes information.
But it has absolutely no idea how a bunch of neurons firing can create the feeling of seeing the color red or the taste of chocolate. That subjective, private experience is a total mystery. And that mystery is so deep that it's made some thinkers wonder, maybe consciousness isn't entirely physical at all.
And that logic is pretty powerful, right? If consciousness itself has non-physical properties, well then of course it's the perfect candidate to connect the physical and non-physical worlds. What could be a better bridge between two different realms than something that already has a foot in both?
Which leaves us with one last, truly mind-bending question that flips this whole thing on its head. What if the brain isn't a factory that manufactures consciousness? What if it's more like a radio receiver? And what if consciousness is a fundamental signal broadcast throughout the universe, and our brain is just the complex antenna that tunes into it and translates it into our reality? A question that shifts us from being creators of awareness to being participants in it.